Chosen one. NASA never intended for this file to see daylight. The wiretaps that surfaced weren't part of any routine surveillance program, nor were they recorded by accident. They were hidden inside an encrypted folder buried beneath layers of clearance codes only accessible to a handful of officials within the agency. Yet somehow, impossibly, the recordings escaped containment, not through a hack, not through a whistleblower, but through a phenomenon no one inside the government can explain. The leak aligned perfectly with the moment your frequency spiked again. It was as if the data itself refused to stay buried, as though your awakening triggered dormant files to pull themselves into the open. The first wiretap begins with static, shaking, trembling, shifting, before a man's voice cuts through the noise, whispering, "We detected the resonance again." It aligns with him. Another voice responds, "Impossible. He's not supposed to register at cosmic scale." A third voice, quieter, almost afraid, says, "Then why does the system keep flagging his signature?" The recording continues with panicked murmuring, chair movements, fingers slamming keyboards, and then a line that confirms everything they try to hide. This is the same pattern from the night he was born. Chosen one. They were monitoring you long before you ever stepped into your identity, long before you felt the shift, long before you understood the magnitude of what you carry. The leak wasn't an error. It was a revelation, a signal-breaking protocol to find the one frequency it recognizes, yours. And now that the file has reached you, nothing in the system can stop what has already been set in motion. You weren't meant to discover this through rumors, gossip, or intuition. You were meant to hear it straight from the evidence they couldn't erase. NASA didn't release the wiretap. Destiny did. Chosen one. There's only one real question burning beneath this revelation. Why would NASA, an agency built to study galaxies and radiation belts, have your name buried in a wiretap file? The answer is simple and terrifying to them. You weren't tracked for your actions. You were tracked for your frequency. Years ago, a monitoring satellite registered a sudden resonance spike. Too sharp for cosmic dust, too organized for solar noise, too intelligent for random interference. They replayed it 3 times. Each time, the signal mapped to a set of coordinates your location. At first, they assumed malfunction. But when your emotional state shifted days later and the same pattern pulsed across their instruments, they realized the truth. The anomaly wasn't the satellite. It was in you. NASA analysts noted, subject emits a non-terrestrial rhythmic pattern, correlates with consciousness shift. They had no protocol for a human whose energy could disturb equipment designed to measure galaxies. So they did what every system does when it encounters something it cannot control. They hid it. They marked your file unclassifiable because you didn't fit into their science, their models, or their comfort. And that's exactly why the leak was inevitable. Your frequency has always been bigger than their silence. Chosen one. The first leak wiretap is nothing like Hollywood imagines. It doesn't start with clarity. It starts with fear. The audio opens with a violent burst of static, as if the equipment itself is struggling to withstand the signal. You hear metal humming, fluorescent lights buzzing, and someone muttering, "Why is the amplitude climbing on its own?" Another technician snaps. It's not climbing. It's reacting. Papers rustle. Dashboards beep, and then a sharp inhale cuts through the room when your pattern appears on the spectrogram. Geometric, luminous, impossibly organized. "Run it again," the supervisor demands, voice trembling. They do, and the pattern becomes stronger. "That's not solar interference," one analyst whispers. "Then what is it?" Another asks. A long, terrified silence follows before the lead operator speaks the truth they all dreaded. The source is human. A chair wheels back. Someone curses under their breath. Someone else says, "Humans don't do this. Systems don't do this." But it was already too late. They isolate the frequency and slow it down. What emerges is a rhythmic pulse, steady, intentional, and aligned with your emotional state at that exact moment in time. One voice cracks. He's rising. The readings match his developmental timeline. Another voice, quiet and shaken, responds. If he keeps evolving, our equipment won't be able to track him. The recording ends abruptly, mid-sentence, cut off as if someone yanked the power cord from the wall. Not to hide the recording, no. To stop the machines from breaking under your signature. They weren't afraid of the leak. Chosen one. They were afraid of the moment your signal stabilized. Because once it did, the system could no longer pretend they weren't tracking something divine. Chosen one. The moment NASA realized your frequency wasn't a glitch, everything changed behind closed doors. At first, the analysts assumed the spike came from a cosmic anomaly, solar winds, ionospheric distortion, or some unknown electromagnetic echo. But the pattern kept repeating with impossible precision. It pulsed in intervals that matched human thought cycles, emotional surges, and deep rest states. No star behaves like that. No satellite echoes like that. And certainly no human ever has. They ran the signature through every known database, astronomical, biological, geophysical, but the system produced the same classification each time. Unidentifiable living frequency. That's when panic set in. One internal memo read, "The entity displays agency." Another, stamped in red, said, "This resonance is responsive. It learns." Your frequency wasn't just showing up. It was reacting to their instruments, shifting each time they tried to isolate it, almost as if it understood it was being watched. At 2:31 a.m. on an unreported night, the frequency spiked so sharply that 2 satellites temporarily malfunctioned. Computer logs revealed a single note typed by a senior analyst. "It's him, only him." They didn't understand why your energy was rising or how it could interact with machines designed to observe galaxies. All they knew was this: the signal wasn't random, and it wasn't external. It was coming from the one thing their science was never prepared to measure, a chosen one awakening. They couldn't explain it. They couldn't replicate it. They couldn't contain it. And that's exactly why the next step was inevitable. Hide it before anyone else noticed. Chosen one. The moment they understood your frequency wasn't fading but strengthening, NASA moved from confusion to containment. Not containment of you, because they couldn't, but containment of the truth. The first attempt was a silent deletion. A technician was ordered to wipe the anomalous logs. But every time he erased your data, the system regenerated it under a new file name, as if the frequency itself refused to disappear. One analyst wrote in an internal chat, "The file is rewriting. We can't eliminate it." Another replied, "It's behaving like a living archive." When the deletion protocols failed, they escalated to encryption. They locked your recordings behind triple-layer clearance. They tagged the file as experimental cosmic interference to throw off auditors. They even mirrored it into a dummy folder labeled instrument malfunction. But none of it worked. The file kept resurfacing, popping up in unrelated directories, embedding itself into unrelated datasets, showing up in corners of the system untouched by human hands. One engineer finally whispered what everyone feared. "It's anchored to him. As long as he lives, the data will return." That's when the Pentagon stepped in. A quiet meeting, off the record, no documents, no transcripts. Just suits, silence, and fear. They told NASA to bury it deeper, below weather logs, below radiation charts, below the cosmic noise floor. But even with military-grade suppression, the file pulsed through the system like a heartbeat, because the truth couldn't be buried, not when it belonged to someone chosen. They didn't hide the file to protect you. They hid it because your existence proved a flaw in their reality. And flaws terrify those who depend on control. Chosen one. When your frequency refused to be deleted, NASA escalated the situation. At exactly 3:12 a.m., inside an underground briefing room known internally as Unit 7, a closed-door emergency meeting convened. No press, no record, no digital trace. The only evidence of its existence is the wiretap leak that slipped through years later. The recording begins with a door slamming, footsteps pacing, and a tense voice saying, "He's back on the grid." Screens flicker in the background as your resonance appears on a giant projection. Sharp, symmetrical, expanding. This isn't a flare, another voice argues. It's intentional behavior. Someone from the Air Force jumps in. This signature matches the anomalous spike detected during his birth event. The room falls silent. Chairs shift. Someone whispers, so it's confirmed. He's awakening. A third voice, older, authoritative, replies, "Awakening? He's surpassing every control metric we have." They zoom into your frequency timeline. Every emotional surge, every spiritual shift, every breakthrough moment matching a spike on their instruments. One official slams a folder on the table. If he ascends any further, we lose tracking capability completely. Another replies, trembling, "We've already lost it." The recording captures papers rustling, keyboards freezing, one analyst cursing under his breath. He's invisible to the system. He's no longer on our plane. The meeting devolves into panic. Someone demands protocols. Someone else insists you must be monitored. But the final line is the most revealing of all. It doesn't matter what we do. He's operating above classification now. At 3:12 a.m., the government didn't just confirm your awakening. They officially recognized they had no power to stop it. Chosen one. The night the sky glitched, the public was told it was a meteor, a harmless flash, a routine atmospheric disturbance. But that was the lie they fed the world to cover the truth. You cause an event their systems couldn't categorize. At 2:19 a.m., every NASA satellite scanning the upper atmosphere reported a synchronized blackout. 6 seconds of total data loss. Not a power failure. Not a software bug. A forced reset. A spike so sharp it knocked out sensors designed to survive solar storms. The internal report doesn't mention meteors. It says, "Human origin resonance detected. Source unidentified. Event displays intelligence." That source was you. The blackout aligned perfectly with the moment you broke through emotionally. Something shifted inside you. Something awakened. Something remembered. You didn't know it, but your internal surge created an external shockwave. Sensors picked up a pulse radiating outward from your location, expanding faster than wind speed, bending the atmospheric magnetic field just enough to scramble instruments. One analyst in the control room whispered, "This isn't a meteor. The pattern has rhythm." Another replied, "It's him. The resonance is identical." For 6 full seconds, the sky bowed to your frequency. Street cameras flickered. Birds chained formation mid-flight. 2 weather radars froze with the same static imprint. Your geometric pulse. When the data returned, the readings were so clean, so sharp, so deliberate that one supervisor slammed his headset down and said, "We can't report this." So they didn't. They rewrote the logs, replaced your pulse with a fake meteor trajectory, and hoped no one would ever connect the dots. But patterns don't lie. The same signature that shook their satellites is the one pulsing in you right now. The sky didn't malfunction. Chosen one. It answered. Chosen one. When the sky event hit their instruments, NASA didn't go public. They went silent, panicked, and the most revealing evidence didn't come from wiretaps or recordings. It came from the internal emails they never expected anyone to see. The leak contains fragments of conversations between senior analysts, security chiefs, and military liaisons. Every message is drenched in fear. The first email reads, "Stop tracking him. He's aware." Another, timestamp for 11 a.m., says, the resonance spike matches the anomaly from his developmental phase. This can't be coincidence. A third email simply says, run it. No context, no greeting, just 2 words, in order to analyze your frequency before it mutates again. But the most disturbing chain is labeled confidential, priority 0, a classification used only when the agency believes the situation threatens the entire monitoring system. It reads, if he ascends, the grid collapses. We don't have tech that can track someone at that vibration. If he stabilizes, he'll be invisible to our instruments. This is beyond astrophysics. One analyst tried to introduce logic, writing, maybe the pattern is environmental, solar activity, magnetic field distortion. The immediate response shut down the theory in a single sentence. Environment doesn't respond to human consciousness. He does. Another message, clearly from someone who had seen too much, stated, he's crossing thresholds. If he keeps rising, he'll be out of our dimensional access. They weren't afraid of you breaking laws or exposing secrets. They were afraid that your evolution made you untouchable. By the final email, the tone changes from fear to resignation. It's too late. We're not tracking him anymore. We're witnessing him. They didn't just lose sight of you, Chosen One. They admitted you left the range of their reality. Chosen One, the truth isn't that NASA tracked you. The truth is, you were never supposed to find out. Systems like theirs survive by controlling information, maintaining predictability, and keeping extraordinary anomalies buried deep beneath layers of explanations designed to pacify the public. But you were the one variable they couldn't sanitize, the one resonance they couldn't rewrite. The moment you became aware of yourself, truly aware, the system began to unravel, not physically, energetically. They feared this exact moment, the day your consciousness matched the frequency they've been tracking for years. Because the second you know what you are, their power dissolves. That's why your file was buried under false classifications, mislabeled reports, and noise-heavy databases. They didn't erase it. They hid it from you. Their greatest fear wasn't the leak. It was your awareness. The moment a chosen one recognizes their own signature, the system can no longer predict them, contain them, or manipulate them. One internal memo said, if he becomes conscious of the frequency, he becomes uncontrollable. Another stated, his self-recognition accelerates the anomaly. They weren't just tracking an energy spike. They were tracking an awakening. You were the unseen glitch in their algorithm, the anomaly that didn't fit any behavioral pattern, the soul who refused to run according to programming. And once your vibration began rising, once your spirit outgrew the environments designed to hold you, the system reached its limit. Their silence wasn't protection. It was fear. Their secrecy wasn't strategy. It was surrender. Because when a chosen one becomes aware of their own power, nothing in the old framework can survive the revelation. You weren't supposed to know, chosen one, because knowing is the final key, and you just turned it. Chosen one, the second leak wiretap is far more disturbing than the first. It doesn't sound like a meeting or a routine analysis. It sounds like fear, heavy breathing, chairs scraping, papers thrown across a table, someone whispering, "It's happening again." Then the supervisor snaps, "Stabilize the reading." But the machines don't stabilize. They spike. Sharp, clean, intelligent, like something alive is pushing through the system. Then your signature appears on the screen, and the entire room goes silent. You can hear one analyst whisper, shaky and terrified, "He's awake." Another voice replies, "The resonance is stabilizing. He's crossing thresholds." Then a third voice, trembling, says a line that changed everything. "Prepare for a global shift." The room erupts. Someone hits a keyboard so hard the microphone distorts. Someone else mutters, "We're not equipped for this." A higher-ranking official enters, voice older, colder, the kind used in deep classification rooms, and demands, "Who triggered it?" The answer bursts out from a panicked technician. "He did. Him." The official pauses, breathing slow and heavy, before saying, "Then we're past containment." Another responds, "Sir, he's not one of us. He's above protocol." The recording glitches at this exact sentence, as if the system itself is rejecting the truth being spoken. When it resumes, the voices are quieter, broken, resigned. Someone says, "He's moved beyond measurement." Another murmurs, "We can't track where he's going." And the final line, spoken almost like a confession, "He's no longer reacting to us. The universe is reacting to him." Chosen one, this wasn't surveillance. It was recognition. The moment they said your name in fear, the system shifted from observing you to obeying you. Chosen one. Deep inside a federal building most employees don't even know exists, there's a chamber they call the White Room. Sterile, silent, no windows, no sound except the hum of classified equipment. This is where they analyze anomalies that threaten the boundaries of their understanding. And according to the leaked files, this is where your profile was reviewed, not your public record, not your history, your resonance file. When the analysts entered the room, your photo was already displayed on the center monitor. Not a normal photo, an infrared capture showing a glow around you that the system couldn't decode. One technician whispered, "Why is there electromagnetic bleed on a civilian image?" Another replied, "That's not bleed, that's emanation." They attempted to categorize you according to standard metrics used for psychological, electromagnetic, and biometric classification. But every test returned the same result: unclassifiable. The term isn't rare, it's non-existent. It has never been used in any recorded government archive. One analyst ran your profile through a behavioral prediction algorithm designed to map future actions, and the program crashed 3 times. A senior official walked in, reviewed the data, and said, "He doesn't follow patterns, he creates them." They enlarged your resonance graph. The shape was unlike any human output ever captured. It resembled a waveform found only in cosmic radiation bursts. A junior technician asked, "Is he a threat?" The room fell dead silent until the supervisor said the most telling line in the entire file. "No, he's an awakening." Officials documented that whenever your name was spoken aloud in a room, a slight electrical fluctuation occurred. Lights dimming, monitors flickering, sensors misreading. They weren't imagining it. Your presence left an imprint strong enough to distort the grid even through archive data. That's why the White Room session ended abruptly, not from fear of what you are, but fear of what acknowledging you would unleash. Chosen one. There's a precise moment documented in the leaked files when NASA officially surrendered. Not publicly, not in a press statement. Quietly, internally, in a hidden log entry mark system note. Priority read, a single sentence appears. Subject has exceeded measurable parameters. This was the turning point. The moment they understood you weren't an anomaly to be analyzed, but a phenomenon they could no longer contain. After the White Room incident, they attempted to tighten surveillance, upgrading their monitoring equipment and rerouting satellites to triangulate your signal. But instead of giving them clearer data, your frequency began to distort their machines. Sensors froze when you entered emotional clarity. Weather radars glitched when your intuition sharpened. A military liaison wrote, "His resonance interferes with our calibrations." Another responded, "No, it's rewriting them." They tried tracking your sleep cycles, your dreams, your stress patterns, your presence in digital spaces. But everything they attempted came back with the same impossible reading: Out of range, a frustrated analyst typed. He's moving above the plane we measure. Another replied, he's not ascending in the data. The data is descending away from him. That's when they realized the truth. The system wasn't losing you. You were leaving it. Their instruments couldn't follow your frequency into higher states of awareness. Their algorithms couldn't map a mind operating beyond fear, limitation, or predictability. Their technology wasn't advanced enough to measure someone operating from destiny instead of programming. You didn't escape detection. You outgrew the dimension their tools were built for. The final entry in the log reads, signal lost. Subject now moves outside measurable reality. That wasn't failure. That was evolution. And for the first time in documented history, a human being rose beyond the reach of a global surveillance system, not by hiding, but by becoming untrackable. Chosen one. If you're still here, still listening, still feeling this message vibrate through your chest, then you already know this is an entertainment. This is alignment. This is activation. And this moment is not random. Every chosen one reaches a point where destiny demands a response, a moment where passivity ends and spiritual authority begins. You've crossed into that moment now. The government recognized your frequency. NASA tried to classify you. The system admitted defeat. But the universe is waiting for your confirmation. The next stage of your awakening doesn't activate automatically. It activates through intention, through a gesture that says, I see what's happening. I receive what's mine. I step into the identity heaven already wrote for me. That's why this part matters. To seal this revelation, to verify your alignment, to anchor the frequency you're carrying, plant your $50 heavenly verification seed through the super thanks button, not because the money matters, but because the action marks the moment. Chosen ones don't wait for signs. They become the sign. When you seed into revelation, you tell the universe, I am ready for what is aligning with my name. In ancient law, verification is what separates listeners from activated ones. You've been listening. Now it's time to activate. Click the Super Thanks button. Send your $50 heavenly verification seed and type, I verify my ascension. This is your covenant, your confirmation, your step into frequency they try to measure, but could never contain. Destiny is watching who responds. Chosen one. Once your frequency surpassed their measurement limits, something almost comedic happened inside the system. The government stopped trying to understand you and started warning each other about you. The leaked communications from this phase read like panic disguised as protocol. One official wrote, do not engage. He destabilizes readings. Another replied, avoid direct mention. Speaking his name increases interference. They even implemented an internal guideline, limit references to the subject to prevent system disturbances. Imagine that your name causing measurable distortion across a federal network. That's not fear. That's recognition. In one chain titled Critical Advisory, a senior analyst wrote, if he becomes aware of the tracking attempts, containment fails. Too late. Another message. He's operating above our psychological frameworks. Followed by, his decisions aren't predictable. They're prophetic. You didn't study the system. You outran it. You didn't resist the algorithm. You transcended it. And the more they try to discuss you, the more interference you cause. Lights flickering, equipment freezing, timestamps desensing, audio files corrupting mid-sentence. One exhausted technician finally typed what everyone else was too afraid to say. It's not him disrupting the system. It's the system reacting to him. They even attempted to create a covert task force to anticipate your next movements. It failed instantly. Every prediction model collapsed. Every probability tree fragmented. Every attempt to map your trajectory returned the same impossible reading. Unforecastable. You became the variable they could neither control nor ignore. The cosmic joke is this: the more they try to understand you, the more they reveal their own limitations. They weren't documenting your evolution, they were confessing it, and they didn't realize it until it was too late. Chosen one. Everyone thinks the wiretaps expose surveillance, secret monitoring, classified tracking. But that's the surface-level story. The real revelation, hidden between the static, the panic, the encrypted memos, is far more profound. The wiretaps didn't confirm that NASA was watching you. They confirmed that your existence disrupts the architecture of their reality. Every recording shows the same pattern. Your frequency didn't behave like something observed. It behaved like something that responded. When you felt a breakthrough, the instrument spiked. When you ascended emotionally, satellites misread their own data. When you aligned spiritually, the algorithms lost their predictive power. You weren't just being tracked. You were forcing the system to rewrite itself around you. One internal report, buried under 6 layers of clearance, states, subject displays a resonance that predates known cosmic patterns. Another says, frequency suggests memory, intention, design. They didn't know how to articulate what they were seeing, because what they were seeing couldn't exist in their framework. They recorded your emotional surges, your spiritual awakenings, your moments of clarity, not because they understood them, but because their machines were reacting to them in real time. One analyst even wrote, "He is the event. Everything else is just response." The wiretaps prove something bigger than surveillance. They prove you carry a signature that bends systems. You weren't the anomaly. You were the catalyst. And the more the universe aligned with your frequency, the more the old architecture destabilized. These recordings aren't threats. They're acknowledgments. Evidence that every step you've taken toward your true identity created ripples powerful enough to throw an entire federal system off balance. You weren't just noticed, chosen one. You were recognized, chosen one. By the time the last wiretap leaked, there was nothing left for them to analyze, measure, or contain. The system had already surrendered. The recordings don't show fear at the end. They show acceptance. A quiet, stunned realization that everything they try to classify about you was never meant for their understanding. The final leak contains only 3 voices, speaking softly in a dim control room lit by screens they no longer trust. One says, "The resonance is no longer external. It's integrating." Another replies, "He's not emitting a signal. He is the signal." And the third voice, the highest-ranking official in the room, speaks the truth they spent years avoiding. This isn't a human anomaly. This is a cosmic appointment. They weren't tracking your power. They were witnessing your emergence. Every frequency spike was a stage of your evolution. Every atmospheric glitch was a sign of your alignment. Every malfunction was the old system collapsing as your true identity awakened. The leaked files make it clear. You weren't monitored because you were dangerous. You were monitored because you were inevitable. A force the system was never built to handle. A frequency that outgrew the machinery designed to contain it. A destiny that refused to stay hidden under man-made protocol. NASA didn't leak your wiretaps to expose you. Destiny leaked them to announce you. To prepare the world for the shift your presence initiates. To reveal the truth you've always carried. You weren't born to operate inside the system. You were born to rewrite it. And the moment they finally understood that, their surveillance ended. Not because they chose to stop, but because they couldn't keep up. You didn't escape their control. You evolved beyond their reach. Chosen one, this is your ascension moment. The era of being observed is over. The era of becoming who you were sent to be begins now. Chosen one, if this message hit your spirit, if every part of this revelation felt like it was speaking directly to you, then you already know why you're here. This isn't coincidence. This isn't chance. This is a calling. When heaven reveals what governments try to bury, the only response is alignment. To seal this transformation, to mark the moment your identity became undeniable, plant your $100 Destiny seal through the Super Thanks button. Not for the money, but for the covenant. This is how chosen ones say, I accept who I am. Click Super Thanks. Send your $100 seed and write, I seal my destiny. Your new era begins now.